Hey, we got a great guest with us coming up here, and maybe you have seen his television program or watched him on or listened to him on the radio called Wretched TV, Wretched Radio. And what a delight to have with us today Todd Friel, who hosts both of those. And he's taken on a topic that I think you're going to find to be pretty interesting, and that is it fair to criticize radical Christianity? What is radical Christianity with other radical faiths? Todd, what a delight to have. I love your set. Where are you, man?
Well, we're actually on the TV set right now. This is where we shoot 5 episodes of Wretched every week. This is our home.
I love it. Looks great.
You know, this is actually what you're looking at. It's very real. We didn't really make a set. We didn't build a set. We just kind of moved into this really old building. So what you see is what it actually is.
You're kind of like us. We're not low budget TV. We're no budget TV, but it works.
Well, you got more than we've got.
Hey, nice to have you with us. And where can people watch your program? Tell us how to see it.
Well, we're on a bunch of different networks around the country, so you can check us out on the NRB network, FamilyNet, a bunch of different networks carry us. You can just look for your local listings. Look for the word wretched, as in wretched man that I am. It's kind of biblical. And you can find us, and we're also syndicated on radio. We do 2 hours of radio every day also across the country.
All right, sounds good. Well, you have arrived. You're now on the Dove TV and radio. Maybe we got to get your program on here.
Sweet. We would love that.
Hey, you've taken on an interesting topic. How did this grab your attention?
Oh, it's just this is staggering. I don't know if you've been following any of the congressional hearings that have been going on, thanks to New York Congressman Peter King. He wants to take a look and see what's going on with the religion of peace in America. How is Islam doing? What's going on in their mosques? Is there a threat? And they invited in a former member of the committee to speak. He's a congressman from Texas. His name is Al Green, not to be confused with the singer our president likes to impersonate when he opens up his golden throat. This fellow took 5 minutes to basically say, I have no problems with hearings taking a look into different religions, how they're behaving. But if we are going to investigate Islam, then we've got to take a look at radical Christianity. And my jaw, Perry, practically hit the ground.
Wow.
Radical Christianity is building hospitals, building orphanages, taking care of widows, feeding people all over the globe, telling people that there's forgiveness of sins in Jesus Christ. That's radical Christianity, when we actually live our faith. But he was kind of saying something that I'm afraid, Perry, he's not alone in this. In fact, I saw on the Bill O'Reilly program, because I watch Fox News because I'm a Christian, and that's kind of a part of the deal.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a Christian, you got to watch the Fox.
Did you notice the president went into a bar yesterday and asked him to switch the channel?
Is that right?
Did you see that? No, he went into a bar in Ohio yesterday, and Fox News was on, and he asked him to change the channel.
So much for fair and balanced.
Yeah, there you go.
You remember Imam Rauf? He was the fellow who wanted to help build the mosque at in Manhattan with the 9/11 site.
Yeah, right.
Well, he was just on the Bill O'Reilly program, and I don't know if Bill missed it, if he ignored it, but he didn't catch it. But it's something that I've been hearing a lot of people stating. They're equating radicalism in all religions with Islam. And I'm afraid that it's a trend that we really should try to nip in the bud, because if they try to paint us in the same light, I think what they're up to, Perry, is basically don't throw stones from a glass house. You radical Christians can't be criticizing radical Islam. Well, I think there's a lot of reasons to be concerned about Islam, and to equate Christianity and Islam together, I think is honestly, if the history books are written in our country, if God lets the world spin for another 100 years and they write the books about what happened to America, I think they might cite this congressional comment as when the world officially went nuts. It's unbelievable that they want to do hearings on these maniacal Methodists, these bloodthirsty Baptists, and of course these crazy Lutherans who are sprinkling water on their babies. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. Wow.
So this must be the ultimate multicultural attempt to make one God, the same God for everybody.
Well, I think it's a little bit of the postmodern trick, and that is the how dare you criticize, don't be judgmental, you guys are acting like bullies. Well, I really don't think that Christianity can be equated with Islam. And unfortunately, when you take a look at Islam, Perry, the history is not new. There have been, according to religionofpeace.com, over 19,000 individual terrorist-like attacks, whether it's on individuals, on people in pizza parlors, since 9/11.
Wow.
Over 19,000. And this has been going on, I'm afraid, since the 7th century. And we have to take a look at their religious book, which is the Quran. Let's take a look at their history. And what we see is something that, frankly, I think is a little bit scary. And to equate that with Christianity, I think is mind-boggling.
All right. Now, are we afraid to look at radical Islam? I mean, are we afraid to really talk about this for the sake of peace and let's kumbaya and get along? I mean, when we look into this, we ought to be afraid, but somehow we just don't go there.
Well, I think the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times, is that we just don't want to be critical. We don't want to be judgmental, especially when it comes to religion. Unless, of course, you're criticizing Christianity, then it seems to the tolerance street seems to be a one-way direction. But I think it's just a part of the age where you can't say anything about somebody's personal beliefs. That's what they believe. How dare you claim to be right? Well, this moves beyond theological. Of course, we believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, the life. We believe in complete forgiveness of sins, not a work-based religion. We're the grace people, but we're just looking at something very practical here, and that is what is going on in our country and around the globe from a world religion that is the second largest religion in the world. Right. You know, speaking of television networks, Perry, did you ever hear the story from a few years ago? It was called Bridges TV, a network in New Jersey. It was basically an Islamic network intended to be a bridge-building network to show America, hey, we're a peaceful religion. The individual who was the CEO of that organization, are you ready for this?
Wow.
Beheaded his wife in America. I'm not making this up. This happened, I think, 3 years ago. He beheaded the individual who was given the responsibility of showing Americans that Islam is a religion of peace, lopped off his wife's head because she was not being obedient. We have an honor killing that happened recently in Arizona. The man went to trial, thankfully found guilty, for running over his own daughter. We are seeing, again, here's a good example. The difference between Christianity and Islam. Yeah. Tim Tebow, the Christian, is trying to sell underwear. Islam tries to blow up their underwear in an airplane to kill people. I think that's a pretty good contrast of the difference between Christianity and Islam. But as we take a look at these historical things, my bigger concern is that we are being lumped in with a religion that has demonstrated terroristic tenets. That's not Christianity. They try to hearken back to the Crusades, or they'll say Timothy McVeigh was a Christian. Or they'll say, the KKK, what about the KKK? Well, we would say the KKK isn't Christian at all. Right. And it's certainly dwindled from its glory days down to about 3,000 members. So my larger concern really is that we are being painted on the same level, on the same canvas as Islam, and it's just not historically accurate.
So where do you think this is going to go, Todd? If we don't stand up now and separate ourselves, we could get mixed in, and then in the long run, we're neutered. We're just kind of made vanilla on this whole issue. We have nothing to defend.
Yeah, I would actually, Perry, I think you're exactly right, and I would even go a step further. It's not that we're just going to be put in a corner and marginalized. I think that we are going to be labeled as those mean, intolerant, nasty, judgmental people who are hate speakers, who are bullies, who need to be silenced or set apart in some way. So I don't want to be a black helicopter guy, but it seems that we're headed in the direction where we're moving beyond just being marginalized to we're being considered a threat on the same level as Islam.
Why isn't Islam criticized for their stance against homosexuality? Hello, Earth to Todd.
Yeah, well, it kind of sets it up for a kind of a terrible pun. Well, I think the secularists say they're trying to keep their heads about them. Is what I think.
Padum ching. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, I watched this terrible TV show for as many minutes as I could stand. Russell Brand, he's the comedian from Great Britain who was married to Katy Perry for a while. Right. He has some TV show, and I watched it because he was talking religion, exclusively talking religion, being very judgmental toward Christianity, and very off the cuff he said, well, Islam, well, I'll just say nice things because, well, we know, and then he moved on. Well, I think that was probably about right. There is a threat that is involved. If you take a look what happened in the Netherlands, if you take a look at what happens to somebody who writes a Satanic Verses book or who writes a cartoon about Muhammad, you have to have security detail.
Yeah. So Todd, when is the West going to understand that we are in a spiritual war, that the Islamic faith calls for dominance, world dominance, and if you don't, what is it, pay your taxes, convert, or be killed? I mean, isn't that the big three? And the tax being their tithe?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Now contrast that with the Great Commission. Go and make disciples, not by the sword, not by forcing people or coercing people, but
right.
teaching them.
Right.
You also think about Surah 9:5, slay the unbeliever wherever you find him. And then contrast that with the words of Jesus who said, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you. The bad news is, Perry, I think we're headed in the direction where Christians, and there's other signs of the times, I think that point toward Christians being considered very dangerous people. The great good news is we've got great good news. And the Prince of Peace can really bring peace. And I think the hope of the world really is not through military and war. Just war, I don't have a problem with that. But if we want to see peace in the East and then in the Middle East, it has to be through the gospel, through Dove, through people who are trying to broadcast the gospel, through people who are trying to satellite. We can't get through the front door, but we can come in through the ceiling, through right. satellite radio. The gospel can win the day. That's the good news.
Wow. So let's take a look at ourselves. Our churches are full on Sunday morning, but we're not seemingly changing our own culture in our country. How would you respond to that?
Well, you know, I think you bring up a very thoughtful perspective, and that is if we don't like what's happening in the culture, and I don't think we do, we need to take a look at the major cult, if you will, in the country, and that is Christianity. The culture is merely a reflection of what is going on in the church, and there's some good trends in the church these days,
right,
Perry. There's
right.
some good conservative, the gospel-centered right. movement is magnificent. We right. celebrate that. There's also a lot of, frankly, there's some lunacy going on. There's kooky charades going on in church. We see pastors coming in on camels and coming in Batman costumes. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
A pastor in a spandex suit to preach on what we can learn from a Batman movie. We see some silly things going on in the evangelical church. And I think that when you take a look at the influence of the church, I think it's fair to say it's diminished over the last 40 years.